So we're literally wired up to seek pleasure, okay? Do things that feel good because things that feel good are generally good for you. All except we've we've hacked the system. Brilliant marketers and scientists have figured out how to make fast food super tasty and addictive, and we've created addictive chemical laden substances such as cigarettes and chewing tobacco and alcoholic beverages. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Weaponized Body. I'm your host, Dr. Ryan Hewitt, and today I've got a special episode for you. This is our first mindset podcast. Every week we rotate between metabolic health, physical health, and mindset health, and I try to interview a subject matter expert every month. But today is our first mindset podcast. And what I'm going to discuss today on this mindset podcast is one of my favorite topics. It's the power of doing hard things. And the reason this is one of my favorite topics is because I'm a strong believer in the power of doing hard things. And I see it, how it manifests in the lives of many, whether it's young people, middle-aged people, old people, we're all capable of doing hard things. The problem is we are wired to do the exact opposite as Homo sapiens, as a human being. We're literally wired to be lazy, avoid pain, and seek pleasure. So, as the saying goes, if you want an easy life, do hard things. And if you want a hard life, keep doing easy things. And I think there's no truer statement. And I really like the quote that comes up often is that hard times create hard men. Hard men create easy times create weak men, and the cycle repeats. And we are in a phase in our world, I think, today where we just have wired up everything to be so easy and convenient. And this is on the backs of men and women who have done a lot of hard things. We literally don't have to leave the comfort of our own home. You could have DoorDash bring you your food. You can work from home on your laptop all day long. You literally don't have to move a muscle in order for you to have all your needs met. And the problem with that is biologically, that doesn't work so good. And if you haven't noticed, Mother Nature is undefeated. So the reason we avoid doing hard things, I hate to say it's not your fault because I'm a huge proponent of personal responsibility, taking matters into your own hands and really cleaning up your own backyard before trying to clean up the planet, so to speak. However, you have to know that your brain is wired up for comfort. There's a fantastic book called The Comfort Crisis that I read last year that was an amazing example of the power of doing hard things, but also why we're wired up to be lazy. So we're literally wired up to seek pleasure, okay? Do things that feel good because things that feel good are generally good for you. All except we've hacked the system. Brilliant marketers and scientists have figured out how to make fast food super tasty and addictive, and we've created addictive chemical laden substances such as cigarettes and chewing tobacco and alcoholic beverages, illicit drugs, all these things that feel good, and if they hit your dopamine just right, they obviously leave you addicted and dependent as well. Not to mention our digital devices are addictive, etc. So we're wired up for pleasure. We're also wired up to avoid pain. So, which is a good thing, obviously. It's a good thing to avoid that, stove that's, 300 degrees. Probably shouldn't touch that. It's good to avoid, getting hit by a car and looking both ways. And we're wired up to, look at our environments for traps and for things that are set up to injure you or to cause you pain in any way. But the problem with that is then in social situations, we've decided that it's better to avoid conflict. We're wired up to try not to be ostracized from the group as well. although that doesn't work great in current society. So if we're seeking pleasure and avoiding pain all the time, and all while doing this to conserve energy, you end up fat, sick, and dependent, which a lot of people would joke that's just what the government wants. You know, fat, sick, dependent slaves. Well, guess what? If you just live your life by default, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to be fat, you're going to be sick, you're going to be dependent, and you're going to be a slave to what everybody wants you to do, which is buy their stuff, right? Be on their medicines, and just spend a life where you're just a constant consumer. So, this podcast is going to hopefully help you understand why you need to set up your life and build physical and mental hard challenges in order to break you out of the cycle and get you more towards what is natural. I'm a firm believer that every time you move towards what's more natural, you become healthier. So in my life, I sat and I thought about this a lot. I've done a lot of hard things, I would say, but things that were like life defining, hard things I've done. Really, when I think about physical things, I think CrossFit was the first thing that really taught me how to do really physically hard things. I never knew I had an extra gear that was a gear that not a lot of people like to find. It's a really dark place where you're on the brink of pass out, throw up, shit your pants kind of thing, which doesn't sound fun, and it's not. But the payoff is incredible. If you're able to teach yourself how to get to this extremely exerted state in order to get more work done faster, for me, it was competitive as well, which can be healthy, but also unhealthy at the same time. It expands what is possible for you as far as like your definition of hard. My understanding of what was physically hard to me became larger and larger and larger as far as what I was able to endure, with long effort workouts, even like short duration workouts or really heavy load bearing workouts. I definitely excelled more at the aerobic stuff, but a whole variety of things. CrossFit really taught me how to get really, really uncomfortable in a lot of different ways. Um, which definitely benefited me as an athlete. It benefited my ability to take on hard physical challenges, which can absolutely serve you in your life, of course, becoming very physically resilient, being very physically tough, hard to kill, I like to say. There's definitely a lot of benefit to that. But at the same time, if you can learn how to take those really hard physical challenges and make those transition or translate into being able to do really hard being able to do really hard mental challenges. That's really where you see your life really excel and become more rounded. For me, I didn't figure this out until well down the road. And I tell this story kind of in my origin story about how I didn't really understand how to use this gift of being able to do hard things uh, in other areas of my life. So, and the consequence to that is I was living by default in my marriage. I was living by default in my business, which is really hard to do. But fortunately, I had an amazing business partner, AKA my wife, who really held it together for me while I figured my shit out. And I was really living by default in my spiritual life as well. And it wasn't until I found Wake Up Warrior, which is it's a men's group for married businessmen with children. And I found this group out of desperation, being in a place where I was really lonely and trying to figure out what the hell was wrong with me. I had let a lot of things slip. And in fact, I finally became injured in that place as well. So, everything was on fire. But Wake Up Warrior, what it taught me how to do was how to get really uncomfortable emotionally, which for a lot of men, this is very, very hard. It's not a natural thing for men to do. In fact, a lot of men are taught to be shut down. They're taught to stuff their feelings. They're taught to not show their emotions. And this can stifle a man incredibly. And this doesn't mean you have to be an emotional mess in order to be a man. It just means that makes you sick, right? Secrets make you sick. Stuffed emotions make you sick. And um, unresolved emotional problems or conversations, conflicts, those can make you, actually weak and sick and vulnerable. And this is what it was like for me. And it wasn't until I was able to figure out how to become open in front of other men. And the power of this is inexplicable. It's one of those reasons that um, very I'm a huge proponent of men figuring out how to do really hard physical things. Just the benefits are tremendous, but also figuring out how to get really uncomfortable emotionally as well. And it really comes down to just being able to tell the truth. So my real world stories come from, the sport of CrossFit, and then, men being able to open up in front of other men. Those are the two hardest things I've ever had to do. That really, got me to know myself on a really deep level. And the physical and mental benefits of leaning into those challenges uh, have changed my life forever. And what I want to discuss is, some of the science that I've learned behind that, and why it makes sense now to me. I want to help it make sense to you, and hopefully open you up if this is something that you have challenges with, as far as doing hard physical things, or even doing, hard mental or emotional things. Learning about why that might be important to help you get unstuck in your life. So one of the most powerful research findings that I stumbled across, this was just last year. I don't know if it was a podcast I was listening to or a journal that I stumbled upon, but the journal actually is from the Journal of Brain Sciences. This study came out in 2020, and they discovered an area in the brain called the mid-cingulate cortex. All right, the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. You don't have to remember that. All you have to know is there's literally an area in your brain that when you do like tough physical and mental activities, it literally grows. Right. And this area of the brain is specifically an area that helps with focus, effort, and like adapting to discomfort. And what this study showed is that uh, this area actually is part of your brain that helps, like, before you take on a challenge, it registers the perceived effort, and it adjusts on the requirements that your brain thinks you need in order to accomplish the challenge. For example, it's kind of like, I guess, systematic desensitization. I think back of like what I was terrified of was speaking in public at one point in my life. I remember being in chiropractic school, and the whole class had to pass around a microphone. And there's like, I think 100 people in my class. So there's like 100 students here. Each person got a chance to speak on the mic. And I think they were just sharing one thing about ourselves, just to get to know each other in one of our classes. And when the mic got to me, I had like rehearsed everything I was going to say over and over in my head, waiting for my turn. Part of what I was going to tell people was I was going to invite them to our keg party at our place that we were living, our frat house, with four other guys. But I remember just being friggin' terrified. I remember my heart racing out of my chest, and just no nausea, just like almost like amnesia though. I to this day, I can't even remember if I got out everything I wanted to get out, but I remember people being laughing because part of what I told everyone was to invite them to my cake party. But I just remember I contrast that memory of that guy, right, versus now, after however many public speaking engagements that I've done, how many talks I've done, in my practice and in external events and in front of other professionals, and in front of other, chiropractic events. But I wasn't able to become that guy unless I repeatedly desensitize myself to be able to get in front of other people and potentially make a fool out of myself. Which I think it's one of the greatest fears, I think, is like death in public speaking. Or I think people are more afraid of public speaking than death. I think it is. So, Yeah, I think it comes from that natural dislike of wanting to be ostracized from the group. It's like it's a natural feeling. But I wasn't able to get over that until I just repeatedly put myself in front of other people over and over and over, over the last 15 years of my life, 18 years of my life. And it never, I tell you this, it's never easy, but it definitely gets more and more comfortable. Now it's your mid-cingulate cortex in your brain is that part of your brain that tells you like how scared should you be of this thing you're about to do. How much energy are you going to need? Like what areas of our brain are we going to have to engage? It's really cool. And this goes for like physical challenges and mental challenges, both. I remember, I mean, the endurance events that I've done, part of the reason I do long, hard physical challenges is to make future challenges, physical challenges in my life easier. And it's for that reason. It's that part of the brain um, that um, that is the part that you're engaging that helps you with those perceived exertions that are coming up. So, and they use that with the study. They use functional MRI to really scan and see how those tasks actually even increase the gray matter density in your brain the more challenges you did. So it's pretty cool. And this is why people who do hard things become really resilient. Everyone thinks of like David Goggins, for example. That guy's mid-cingulate cortex is probably made of steel at this point. Long distance endurance runners, elite athletes. One of the hardest events that I've ever done physically was an event I participated in 2016. This is part of where I was just like pushing myself as hard as I could to try to figure myself out. I signed up for this event called Kokoro, which I think it's a Japanese term that means the merging of your heart and mind. It's an event that still exists today. It's an event that's run by a Navy SEAL commander named Mark Devine. It's called SEAL Fit. And this 3-day event, 60 plus hours, is not for everybody. It's for people that really want to like dig deep and like know what it's like to do sort of a BUDS simulation, which if you don't know what BUDS is, it's the one of the parts of Navy SEAL training for you to qualify as a Navy SEAL that they do, which is actually I think a week long. It's just like extreme physical tasks with very little sleep, and it just pushes you right to the brink. And that's the design of it, is try to break you. So over the course of this 3-day, physical beatdown, which we didn't sleep, there's no sleep, 60 straight hours. So I watched the sunrise twice. And this whole time we did different CrossFit challenges. We did lots of log PT, lots of getting wet and sandy and beach torture and grinder torture, which is basically you're on the pavement doing a bunch of calisthenics and lots and lots of rucking up a mountain, down a mountain. Lots and lots of what are called evolutions, which an evolution is just do something really hard and we won't tell you you're done until we say you're done. So you don't know when it ends. So a really huge challenge for your mid-cingulate cortex, I'll tell you that. But I did a half Ironman 2 months after that. And I just remember that half Ironman feeling like an absolute joke. I think I did it in 6 hours compared to the 60-hour challenge of Kokoro. So part of the reason I did that was to, without knowing, just to like build my capacity of what was possible, from a physical standpoint. So yeah, really the more you expose yourself to discomfort, the less reactive your brain becomes to stress. So that's some of the science that I found behind it, which is really cool. Let's talk about the physical benefits. So the mental benefits we talked about, the physical benefits, I touched on this in the last podcast, that physical exercise or physical endeavors are stressors on your body. Okay. But they're positive stressors. They're stressors that are termed hormetic stresses. So this is a funny word describing like a stress on your body that breaks you down, but you build up stronger as a result. So whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So what the science shows is that even small controlled stressors, that are uncomfortable, those strengthen your body and your mind over time. So this is why cold plunges or cold exposure helps you out. It's for me, it's more about, doing something hard and, starting your day with something hard so the rest of your day becomes easier. I think the mental benefits are there for that cold exposure. You do also get a nice dopamine hit after you expose yourself to something difficult like cold exposure. I had one of my patients who said, I have cold showers every morning to wash the bitch off me. wash the wash the bitch out of me, which I thought was awesome, which is exactly what it does. It just like makes you do something real hard when everything in your brain is screaming at you to definitely don't do that. It's going to be uncomfortable, and you do it anyway. And, you become more robust and resilient as a result. Heavy lifting is a obvious hormetic stress. I really enjoy heavy lifting. I've done it for so long that I crave heavy lifting. It's something I do multiple days a week. And this is just like a stressor that my body craves now because, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with, building more armor, building stronger than I was yesterday. Same with endurance training. I mix in, heavy strength training with endurance training. I think this word hybrid athlete has been, watered down and I guess overused. But I enjoy being rounded and hybrid. Every year so far, the last 2 years, and including this year, I'm signed up to do what's called the Tough Ruck. And the Tough Ruck is a marathon with 35 plus pounds on your back. This is done the day before the Boston Marathon. It's done along the Freedom Trail. So we're going to take this on again. And it's a fantastic test for me every year to be able to, challenge my mental and physical toughness. And a lot of times, like I won't train exclusively for this. I'll just throw it in as a challenge to see where I'm at. And I do this throughout the year. I'll schedule a couple of difficult challenges throughout the year for myself. And a lot of people use the word misogi. You're familiar with this term. This is a term that, again, from the Comfort Crisis book that I took. Misogis are, I believe it's an ancient, I want to say Japanese. I'm unsure though. Tradition where it was a challenge that you had a 50-50 chance of completing. So I guess the ruck challenge isn't really a great misogi. You're actually not supposed to tell people about it. It's something that's sacred. It's a challenge you take on to really prove yourself to yourself and to build mental and physical resilience and toughness. So this Tough Ruck is one of the ones I'm going to do this year. Last year I did one called the 29029, which is the height of Everest. So myself and a buddy, we went to Whistler, British Columbia, and our goal was to do it in about 30 hours, which we accomplished. It was 8 ascents of Blackcomb, which is a peak in Whistler. And I believe it was 8 ascents. It was about 4,000 feet per ascent. And we did this just under 30 hours. No, you didn't have to climb down. You take the gondola down. But the real challenge of this was the weather. It was really, really shitty out, rain and cold, especially after the sun went down. But it was an amazing challenge. I've never climbed that much in a 24-hour or a 30-hour effort. So it was really cool. And this is why I'm a big proponent of having a really strong why you train. And for a lot of people, it's like, I want to be a great example for my family. I want to, be strong until I'm 100 and functional. I want to, be strong for my family, to be able to be, protect and serve them. But I'm a huge proponent of having a really compelling what as well. So having a really strong why, but having a really compelling what. And what I mean by that is that you sign up for shit that makes you train harder than you otherwise wouldn't. So for me, last year it was a 29029 and the Tough Ruck. I also did a bodybuilding competition. This year, so far, it's the Tough Ruck. And for me, I'm doing, a mass gain challenge. So just having a really strong what and having something on the calendar to train for is a really powerful way to get you more uncomfortable than you otherwise would if you just, worked out a couple days a week. So obviously lifting heavy, cold showers, fasting even. I'm not a big proponent of fasting, but fasting is another way to create that hormetic stress in your body. Um, Here's the cool thing when you do hard things, and I think a lot of people are aware of this at this point, is your brain releases dopamine when you do this. So it's not the quick hit dopamine like from your phone or from um, you know, uh, sugar, or something that is like a quick hit type of thing. It's more of like a slow release dopamine, like after you do a cold plunge, or after you've ran a half marathon, or after you've done something hard, right? Mental or physical, you get this dopamine hit. I know I still feel this when I do my Wednesday workshops for my patient base, especially when I have big crowds, like 10 to 15 people. I'll do my 30-minute better results faster talk. And man, I get an awesome dopamine hit after this workshop. And it just makes me want to continue doing this for people. Um, public speaking, that kind of stuff. It's those mental challenges are just as powerful as the physical ones when it comes to, the dopamine response. So why do most people avoid hard things? Well, I touched on this a little bit, but the reason people avoid doing hard things is because they're hard. And I'm going to tell you something, that the hardest thing you've ever done is the hardest thing you've ever done, period. There is no substitute for hard work. You can't teach somebody hard work. You can't learn how to do hard work. You can't listen to a podcast about hard work like this. You can't read about hard work and get the benefits of actually, physically doing the work. And this is why, like, I think about examples of this and why it's so powerful. Uh, I'm a huge hockey fan, right? And what I think is so cool is that every year there's something called a trade deadline. And it's around February, like right after All-Star break. This year it's the Four Nations tournament, which is going to be awesome. But what happens is there's a scramble of all these teams that are contending for the Stanley Cup. They look at their salary cap and they try to make additions that will help fortify their squad to make a run at the cup. And the guys that they look for aren't like the superstar big signings. It's always those pieces that help round out the team that really bring playoff experience, Stanley Cup, winning pedigree, and having a good locker room person, somebody with experience, in other words. That's why you can't teach experience, but they bring these intangibles to the dressing room and to the ice that you can't teach somebody about. You just have to have done it. So you just have to have made a long playoff run or won a Stanley Cup, which is arguably the hardest trophy to win in all of sports. And I think it's that that mid-cingulate cortex effect that you build your brain that way, just with that experience. And when our world's like wired up for convenience, it's just the complete enemy of growth. It's so easy to live an easy life now, right? Just to sit on your couch, order out Netflix and chill. It's so much easier to listen to or watch a show instead of read, right? Or leave your house and go to the gym and work out, versus hang out at home and do nothing, or just sit and watch YouTube on your phone. It's just like, we're learning and teaching our youth learned helplessness. Okay. So we're teaching them how to avoid difficulty. And there's a lot of like comedians harp on this, and it's hilarious because, myself growing up in the 80s, like the funniest one was there's a comedian joking about mindfulness, and he's like, mindfulness. What's this mindfulness? People pay to learn about mindfulness. It's like, I used to sit on the bus and watch the condensation drip on the window when I was a kid. Mindfulness. I used to sit on the toilet and take a dump with no phone, just me and my thoughts. Mindfulness. And sometimes this is like a huge thing. This is a huge difficulty for a lot of people, to just even sit in silence. Like if you want to do something hard today, just sit in silence for 10 minutes. You'll be shocked about how uncomfortable you are, how many times it comes up in your head that, hey, I got to check my phone. Hey, I got to do this. Just sit in silence and stillness. But I tell you what, the more you avoid difficulty, the weaker your nervous system becomes. The harder you will find handling stress becomes. How big of a problem is anxiety and stress, particularly in our youth these days? I can't tell you how many times I have this conversation every week. As I mentioned, I interface with at least 200 people from the public weekly. And the amount of conversations I have about young people that they have anxiety, counselors that talk about all the children that they're just, they have so much learned helplessness that they need, they're being fed medications to quiet these feelings of depression and anxiety and um, just being sad and all these things. Like, we're not teaching our kids that these emotions are normal and okay. And when you do hard things, you're capable of more of even harder things in the future. And you develop this adaptation. And the analogy I typically give to this, which just usually hits with people, is have you ever seen, a chicken or a hen who lays an egg, and you watch this chick have to like break through the shell in order for them to survive and become a healthy, thriving organism. Well, if you break the shell for the chick, you don't let the chick like physically exert itself and break through, its chances of survival like plummet. Um, and I think the same thing happens for kids. Is the more we helicopter and the more we create this, safety and security for them, and don't let them get uncomfortable emotionally, don't let them hurt themselves physically. We just teach them that it's not okay to endure and experience hard things. This goes for adults as well. I mean, listen, we're the softest, sickest we've ever been as a nation. The USA, Canada, North America in general. We've just created this helpless society, amplified by the COVID times, which has made it even worse, right? Because people did become dependent on government paychecks. They couldn't leave their house. There was no physical activity being done. We closed the gyms, but we kept the booze and the weed shops open. People were experiencing all the conveniences of sedentary living. And what we've done is we've done almost irreparable damage to the health and psyche of our children, and their learning has been delayed. And we'll see that you see this across the country. Even with adults too, there's a lot of adult attention deficit and anxiety and all this stuff. So anyway, and I'm not saying that some of those aren't real challenges that are all fixed with doing hard things, but I tell you what, anyone who routinely does difficult things is definitely someone who's harder to kill, more resilient, and more able to take on stress. So how do you start moving in the right direction? I say pick one challenge a week, whether it's like you're going to hit one of your workouts harder than you did in the last week, right? You're going to lift a little more weight. You're going to push a little harder. You're going to try to get a little better time, whatever that is. Or one of your showers this week, you're going to end your shower with 30 seconds of just ice cold water, right? Or maybe you're going to go a little bit longer in your endurance work. Okay. If you're at 1 mile, maybe you'll bump it to 1.5 miles, 2 miles. Okay. Just do one physical challenge per week where you pushed yourself a little further. You blurred the line and pushed the barrier just a little bit. That's a physical challenge, right? So pick one mental challenge a week, have a difficult conversation. Okay. Learn a new skill, or remember, sit in silence, go take a dump without scrolling on your phone. I mean, literally that could change your life. Just getting away from those, distracted conveniences. Okay. Get away from the sedations and get more present with yourself. Even sending a message of gratitude or appreciation, that could be uncomfortable for you. I know for me it is, right? Me sending a message of gratitude is not natural for me. That was never something I did routinely. I was never taught the value of doing thank you notes and, expressing gratitude. Those are things I've had to practice really hard. And they make me uncomfortable. I don't know why, but they do. And track your progress. I'm doing a 30-day blueprint this month. TWB, the Weaponized Body, right? TWB30dayblueprint.com. You can sign up for this for free. It's a 30-day challenge, essentially. And in these 30 days, it's not just about eating and working out better. There is a body challenge. Okay. The body challenge is simply eating, a gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight and move your body 20 minutes a day. Simple. The balance is to send 2 messages of appreciation to anybody you choose. Could be a family member, coworker, spouse, child. Your being or mental activities are 10 minutes meditation and writing down 3 things you're grateful for. And the personal growth piece or business piece, I like to call it, is reading 5 pages of a book and then writing down your revelation so you can use it right later on and apply it. So it's a really simple challenge. It's free. You're going to get an app to track your progress. Highly recommend. So jump on board. So as far as key takeaways, right? Doing hard things builds your brain and body. Okay. That mid-cingulate cortex is the part of your brain that actually literally grows when you face difficulty. And really just start small. You don't have to do anything extraordinary. You don't have to sign up for something ridiculous, right? You just have to, start small, pick something that you're going to do to challenge yourself every week and start today, right? Not tomorrow, right? It's the end of January. Everyone's already pretty much, lost touch with their New Year's resolutions. So just focus on the behaviors, not the resolution, right? So I want to say thank you, and I appreciate all of the listeners. We've had some good feedback. I would really, really appreciate if you like the podcast, so rate it 5-star, hopefully. Throw a little, what do you call it? Recommendation, or I always get this wrong. It's not a testimonial. It's a, you'll rate it and then also put your little blurb in there. If you liked it, and then please share it and subscribe. Subscribe's the big one. So like, share, subscribe, and I appreciate you guys listening. And I look forward to talking to you guys next week.